Alina, thank you so much. Joining us now, Democratic strategist and NewsNation contributor Kurt Bardella and Republican strategist Malik Abdul. Gentlemen, good morning.
Good morning, Nick. Happy 4th.
Happy 4th to you two as well. Let's jump right in there. Kurt, I have to ask you this. Are Democrats in trouble, or has this shifted the conversation for only a short amount of time?
They are in trouble, and really nothing is going to change about this dynamic until we see President Biden, and particularly coming up Friday, tomorrow, how he does with this big sit-down interview with George Stephanopoulos. I don't think that there's ever been as much pressure on a president, on a candidate for a TV interview as what is building right now. I think a lot of Democrats in Congress, particularly ones that I have spoken to, are waiting to see how this interview goes down before they decide whether to publicly come forward and call for the president to step aside and let Kamala Harris perhaps take that torch. A lot of Democrats in Congress I've spoken to have been recalling back in 2016 during one of the presidential primary debates when I think it was Congressman Eric Swalwell who said, pass the torch. That was 7-8 years ago. And here we are all these years later. I think a lot of the frustration that you're hearing right now from Democrats is that this is something that could have been avoided had people been honest about what really is going on inside this White House. And they feel a little caught off guard because they've been told for months, it's okay. He's great behind closed doors. You should see him. He's got so much energy. Right. And yet what we saw at that debate did not align with the narrative that we've been told.
Yeah, Kurt, coulda, woulda, shoulda. Malik, I have to ask you this, though. There are still those who believe Mr. Trump to be morally unfit to hold the office of the presidency. Why is someone that many have deemed in the last 2020 election to be morally unfit to hold the presidency the right choice, even if we're questioning the cognitive health of Mr. Biden?
Because I think what we saw at the debate on Thursday was significant. The debate rules were designed to actually constrain Donald Trump to help Joe Biden. But what we saw in that debate, that none of those benefits actually helped him at all. It was Donald Trump who was being able to articulate actually a vision forward when it came to the issue on abortion, where he said that he supported the 3 exceptions for abortion. I thought that was a very huge thing. What we saw from Joe Biden, it fed into many of the negative narratives that we've seen about Joe Biden. If you believe that Donald Trump is morally unfit, the debate didn't sway you. If you believe that Donald Trump is a liar, the debate didn't sway you at all. But what we're seeing, even from the polls that are coming out after the debate, this time we're now almost a week after, well, fully a week after the debate, we're seeing that the American people, despite the accusations about Donald Trump being morally unfit, they believe that they fared better when Donald Trump was in office. They believe that our foreign policy and how we're viewed around the world was better. They believe that Donald Trump was better for them on the economy. So despite the moral depravity that many people feel as if Donald Trump has, he's polling much better than Joe Biden and every other Democrat.
And polling is the subject that we're talking about this morning. In fact, a New York Times Siena College poll, Kurt, finds former President Trump now leading by 8 points over President Biden with registered voters. We have talked about this before. You have mentioned, Nick, it's too early to pay attention to polls. Kurt, that number is a problem.
Well, it is and it isn't if you're a Democrat. The one thing that I've noticed for all the talks about polls is that Donald Trump has a ceiling. And he's had a ceiling for a pretty long time. You would think that a candidate who suffered one of the worst performances in debate history would be over 50% just by that performance alone. And yet he never breaks that threshold, which goes on to tell you intuitively that the American people aren't exactly thrilled and enthusiastic and excited about the prospect of Donald Trump returning to the White House. So if Democrats are able to present an alternative that doesn't have the same type of baggage that President Biden has, that there's real viability there. Trump, frankly, should be at 55% right now. And any other time in history, that candidate going up against a candidate who performed the way Joe Biden did would be across that 50% Mendoza line. But that's the ceiling that Donald Trump has, and that's the silver lining for Democrats.
And that's the silver lining for Mr. Biden in his reelection bid. Malik, how much of a test will tomorrow's primetime interview be for President Biden? And what else will Democrats be analyzing?
Well, I don't think that this interview will be helpful to Joe Biden at all, because it was not Joe Biden. It was Donald Trump who needed the attention of crowds. It was Donald Trump who needed a teleprompter. This is a pre-taped interview, and I think that Joe Biden more than likely will do okay in this interview. So anyone expecting tomorrow's interview to be some sort of blockbuster shouldn't be surprised if Joe Biden is able to sit before what I'm sure is in a very safe space and conduct the interview. I don't think that the interview tomorrow will matter at all. What we saw on that debate stage is what will matter, not what we saw the very next day when he was at the rally in the cold that they say that Joe Biden had, where he doesn't take any medication for it, where he isn't seen by a doctor. None of this will matter in this interview on tomorrow.
Malik, you're like, if you can put him live in front of a crowd, that's one thing, but a taped interview is quite another. Malik Abdul and Kurt Bardella, gentlemen, thank you both.
Thanks for having me.
See you next hour.
Absolutely. It's U.S. Now and